Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, we're going to do some endgame training. And I want to give you a question that hopefully you'll be able to answer by the end of this video with some confidence. So, I want to look at this position. In particular, I want to talk about two potential moves that white has. So before getting into those, let's take stock of the position here. So there are 5 pawns on this side for black, 5 pawns on this side for white, 2 pawns here, 2 pawns here. Cool. So equal material, and right now it's white's move. And the two choices that I'm going to present to you, the first choice is queen takes pawn, knowing that on the next move your bishop will be captured, and you have to go into this king and pawn endgame. Or, option number 2, bishop takes pawn check, and after the king comes in, you take their queen, and you go into that king and pawn ending. So, that may seem like a lot. I want you to see if you can calculate as deep as you can, and maybe if you can't go deep in the moves, try to assign some reasons as to why you think one move is better than the other. So, maybe take 30 seconds, I would say, and try to give it some thought. I think this will really improve your game. It helped me. It gave me some instructive points. Okay, and again, if you want to play with the position, I'll have it in the description, so don't feel like it has to be just my word here. Okay, I'm going to start explaining the answer and how I'm understanding it. So the two moves, one is take here first, the other is take there first. So it turns out in this position, taking this pawn, this intermediate move, this is actually a losing endgame for white. And I was shocked to learn that because I thought for a second when I first saw the position, hey, I'm snagging an extra pawn and I get the queen. It's just a nice exchange. I'm winning a pawn. I'm being sneaky with this intermediate move. That's the way I saw it. Turns out that's not right. And upon further evaluation, it actually made some sense why that is the case. So let's just look at the two scenarios. So in this case where you take the pawn and the king takes, and then you take this queen, the first thing that came to my mind, and maybe it's something that came to your mind, when the king plays king g5, I noticed that they have the opposition, the distant opposition, and I thought, okay, but I'm up a pawn, right? So maybe I can still manage to win the game. And there are lots of ways you can play this, so feel free to play around with the position. But I thought king f2, maybe I can try to maneuver. And then I realized that I'm actually not really in a position to get here because it seems like the king can play king f4. I can't dislodge this king because this pawn is gone. There's no pawn I can push. And I thought, okay, well, I always have this h-pawn. Maybe I can try to use this h-pawn to deflect the king away, and then I can get in. And here's kind of one of the thoughts I had that really helped me understand this position. If I play something like h4, for example, white is the one that's kind of out of tempi here. They don't have any more moves to spend. So in black's next turn, they're going to run into one of these squares. And I really can't do anything about that. And the reason why I'm bringing your attention to that is because they have this pawn on a6 that can spend a move. They can waste a move. So they play a5 here. And now I have to give something up. I have to either move the king, which will let the king in, one of these two, or I have to give up a pawn. Maybe this pawn, maybe that pawn. So you play h5, they just take. And now the problem is the same, just a move later. How do I hold this square and this square down? Well, logically, the only way to hold both of these down, this one, is to be right here. I can't stay here. It's my move. There are no passes in chess. That would be a fun variant, though. So you can't really make anything of this position. You'd have to move out, maybe this way. Yeah, good luck with that, though, because king g3, how are you stopping this one? You want to go into a race? Doesn't make sense to do that because, first of all, I could just take that if I wanted to. And second, this pawn is right there. So I thought, okay, now it's starting to make sense why that intermediate check didn't work. But I didn't have to play king f2. Maybe I play something different. Maybe I play king h2. Maybe I play king g2. It's not really different because if I play this move, they play the same move, king f4. And that flexibility that they have, if I play h4, maybe I want to run in this way. Well, I can't because now I'm giving up f3. Right? Do you see how it's actually kind of a weakness that I have this extra pawn because it just doesn't really work in this position. So now let's go back. Let's examine the position from the beginning. So how is this different? If I take the queen first, right, this is actually the move that wins in this position. If I take first and they take, now, just to assign a quick reason, now their pawns are doubled and our kings are much farther apart. My king is the one that can move a little closer. And it's not clear that this is a decisive win between two people, maybe two human beings. The engine is saying +1, which makes sense. But whether that's a decisive enough advantage, I'm not so sure on that. So king f2 makes sense. And now the question is, how do you stop my infiltration? Well, they can do some stuff. They can play king f6, and now they have this kind of thing I was talking about earlier. But my piece is blocking their entry square. So if I play something like this, which is my first thought, they can play king f6. No, they're already on f6. Let me see here. Oh, they play king f7. Sorry about that. And now if I try to approach like this, they can come back and they can hold this square. But I always have this pawn move, and here we go. If we trade pieces. Now remember my point earlier about having tempo, and the plural of tempo is tempi, having time. Well, now I have more time. I have all these moves that I can expend, and this one is not really counting because I can't take that. I can't really spend the a pawn. But now the king has to stay close because I'm going to start coming in. Well, they don't really have any moves to spend except this a pawn. So they can't come forward. Well, I guess they can go here, but I'll show why that doesn't work. But they kind of seem like they have to go backwards. So if they come here, I play king g5, and I go, how are you stopping this? How are you stopping me pushing this pawn, me taking this pawn next, and then me just winning? And like I was saying, they don't really have anything. They want to back up? That's fine, I just take. What else do you suggest? They want to push the pawn? That's fine, I just f4 check. You back up? You're going to have to back up now. It's the only move. Now I take. And this is push, push, push. This pawn is going to become a queen. So this is quite an instructive endgame because it seems like in this position, like I said, feel free to mess around with it. There are lots of other ways to play it. I'm sure black can play better. The computer's saying it's a +1 from that initial position. So the moral of the story here, and the way that I thought about it, was you shouldn't always go for these intermediate moves. For me, one of my temptations as a chess player is I'm always trying to find those in-between moves because I think they're so fancy. I love the way they look. It's cool to leave this queen here for a moment and say, I'm going to sack my bishop, or not really sack it. I'm going to exchange my bishop and get that extra pawn just so I can win that pawn. But don't jump at those opportunities because it turns out they're not always beneficial. And in this case, it actually turns out to be a full-on loss because, like I said before, black is pushing you around and you're going to lose some material. It's going to be a duel here between these squares and you're going to lose it. Eventually, you'll have to back up. They're going to come in and you're going to be pressed against the wall and they're going to push these pawns home. Okay, so I hope you got something out of that video. I found it to be an incredibly instructive endgame. There are many other variations. As I've said a couple of times already, if you want to check out other variations, feel free to look in the description of this video. I have the position posted. And be sure to interact with other people in the chess community. I've seen some great comments that are commenting on things I've missed. I'm very happy to read that. I want to improve my videos and I really want to help people. So that's kind of the whole point of Chess for Charity. So I'm open to feedback. So I appreciate all of the input. But that's it for now. And thank you so much. Hopefully you subscribe. And that's it. Thanks. Bye.